Hello, my name is Doug Roland from the Feeling Through Experience. I'm speaking with Ryan Odland today from the Helen Keller National Center. We are using the virtual space as a platform to continue our collaboration with Helen Keller Services in addressing timely topics connected to the deafblind community and beyond. Today, there isn't a more timely topic to discuss than COVID, and we will be speaking on how the deafblind community is dealing with COVID, a community that relies largely on touch, and how that community is dealing with a time where touch is pretty much prohibited. So we're gonna just go to you, Ryan. If you could give just a really quick introduction of who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump right into that topic.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Odland. I work for Helen Keller National Center, often referred to as HKNC. I am a regional representative located in the Midwest, so I'm responsible for the Midwestern region. I am a deafblind individual. I was born deaf. My vision was good, but as I got older, I started to lose my vision, and it's progressive. So now I'm almost completely blind. I can see very little just right in front of my face. I use American Sign Language to communicate. It's what I've used my whole life. But as I've lost my vision, I've transitioned into using tactile American Sign Language, which is my primary mode of communication now. I have a master's degree in deaf education, and I work with deafblind individuals to provide support and access and different resources in their home communities. As far as family, I am married. I have 2 kids. My children are almost 6 and almost 2.
Great. So just to jump right into it, as you know, as someone who is a deafblind man yourself, and someone who is used to relying on tactile communication, how has recent times with coronavirus impacted your life personally?
This is Ryan. My life has changed quite a bit since coronavirus has started spreading. I can't go close to people like I normally would because of physical distancing. So because we have to stay 6 feet away from each other, I can't communicate in the way I normally would through tactile sign language. Instead, I'm using things like email, FaceTime, and Zoom, texting people when I can. Instead of going to stores, I've been ordering things online a lot. I've been very heavily reliant on Amazon and DoorDash for food delivery. We've been ordering a lot of takeout. Instead of going food shopping at the grocery store, which we normally do, we've been ordering groceries to get delivered to our house to cook at home. In my home, I can get close to people because we are a family unit, so I'm having no issues with my wife and kids, but I'm very, very limited to what I can do out of the house now. And as far as work goes, that has been pretty much a complete 180. My whole job is to work with people and meet people and have conversations with them. I travel a lot for work. I attend a lot of meetings in person with other deafblind clients, and now I can't because we all have to stay home. So I'm working from home the best I can, and that's basically means using technology 100% of the time. But we don't benefit fully from using technology. We have to come up with some creative solutions in order to make technology accessible to the deafblind community. So it's been a transition.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. I know as a regional representative at the Helen Keller National Center that you have a lot of contact with other deafblind people that you service. And I'm wondering, in communicating with other people, what stories you've heard, or what other challenges some other people in the community are dealing with right now, from communicating with them, that you've heard.
It's been a very varied experience. Some of the people that I work with, it's been great because they are very, very skilled at using technology. But I work with some people who are not as skilled with using technology, and that's been quite a challenge. Some people, because their vision loss is very recent, haven't learned Braille fully yet, and that's how they would be able to access technology, whereas previously they relied on written English. So we're a little bit stuck there. Hopefully they have somebody who can support them at home, who can assist, whether that's a family member or, sometimes a roommate, or someone who can go over and be with them in that location. But before, I was able to visit them, meet them one-on-one. Now that that's not an option, we've got to come up with other solutions for it. Some deafblind people are not comfortable using technology just because it's isolating. They prefer to talk to people in person. Sometimes it's a resources issue, like they may not have all the equipment they need for, because of financial or other reasons, and that can be very isolating. So the technology that they're reliant on, they may not be able to have access to. So, I'm doing my best to support all the individuals that I work with, but it's been a challenge because the experiences are so varied.
On the topic of solutions that people have been finding, there was a story that was shared a lot this week in the deafblind community and beyond, a news story about a deafblind specialist in Kentucky named Corrine Miller, who found a solution to this, the current restrictions around COVID, and has been teaching one of her deafblind students through a glass window that in front of that student's house. So I really love that article, and it's something that we can share later with everyone who's going to watch this, because it was such a great example of a really creative way to work with current circumstances.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a very unique example too. But that's an example of the kind of approach that we're trying to come up with. We're trying to come up with ways to still be in person without being physically close to one another. Like right now we're using Zoom to talk. That's an option for people who can access it, who can see well enough to use it. There's also the chat feature in Zoom that people can use. Some people will benefit from that, but some people won't. So each person needs to find the accommodation that suits them best. And like I mentioned, some people are really uncomfortable using technology. Sometimes remote support is an option, for people that can remote into computers. That's a huge benefit if people have that available to them, but not everybody does. So we need to figure out ways to still stay in touch with each other without being physically close, because obviously health and safety in the time of COVID is the most important thing. So we don't want this virus to spread amongst us. Gloves and masks are recommended, but you can't really support somebody with a glove and a mask, and even still you're supposed to be 6 feet away from them. So how to communicate without touching somebody who heavily relies on touch is really the biggest question.
Right. I'm wondering if, you've mentioned that there's some some people who maybe aren't as tech savvy, who rely on touch. I'm wondering if you've had any conversations with any deafblind individuals who are pretty much completely isolated right now, being that they're not, perhaps they're not living with a family like you are, and maybe aren't as tech savvy as you. Have you connected with or talked with or heard about or heard from anyone who is in that position right now?
Yes, I have. I have an example of somebody who can't really communicate through Braille because of certain neuropathy, like has numbness in her fingertips, so can't really feel Braille or Braille display, because Braille is a series of raised bumps that you feel in order to read. But if somebody doesn't have that feeling in their fingers, then they can't read Braille. So they rely very much on tactile sign language, but we can't do that because we're not allowed to be that close to each other right now. So she's inviting interpreters into her home, but it's very, very limited as far as getting access to, and it's very unfortunate because every mode of communication is basically inaccessible because of the physical distance that's required.
So you're talking about interpreters coming into that individual's home. I'm wondering, of the interpreters that you've been able to communicate with during this time, particularly the interpreters that are tactile interpreters, have you had any discussions with them about their willingness or reluctance to continue to do their job at a time where them and everyone else is being advised to not be that close to people? Have you had those discussions with interpreters?
The problem is that we don't have enough PPE. Interpreters don't have access to a lot of the personal protective equipment that's required. There are some interpreters that are willing to go and support somebody who is deafblind. They can gown up, glove up, put on a mask. But if that protective equipment is not available to them, then they're putting themselves at much, much higher risk. And because they can't get the equipment, they're less willing to go. So a lot of services and a lot of appointments have been put on hold for the time being. So there really are very few options left for deafblind tactile sign language users.
So I'm going to take a quick pause for an interpreter switch, and then we'll pick up from there. And for those who will be watching this later and don't know what an interpreter switch is, we have two interpreters joining us who are taking turns signing and voicing. And it's customary for interpreters every 20 or so minutes to switch those roles. So that is an explanation of what was happening there. So Ryan, to pick up on where we were, I can imagine that's a very challenging position to be in for everyone involved. But, for obviously someone who relies on touch and is not able to get the same type of support and to be able to communicate in the way that person is used to. And then on the side of an interpreter who is also stuck in a tricky position to have to make the decision of abiding by the various rules that are being implemented right now as far as physical distancing, but also wanting to service the community that really needs that service right now. So I can imagine that that's a very difficult position to be in. I want to make mention of the op-ed article that you wrote recently. There was an article in the Washington Post this past week, very much about what we're talking about now, which is the ways in which coronavirus has affected the deafblind community. And I know that you wrote an op-ed article in response to that. And I'd just like you to what inspired you to write that, and what are some of the things that you talked about in that op-ed?
This is Ryan Shore. The article that was in the Washington Post really emphasized connectedness. Now, with this physical distancing, it has really impacted connectedness because you're not allowed to be physically around other people, but you're still able to maintain social connectedness. So we've tried to come up with different ways to communicate despite that. And I noticed in reading this article that I did agree that this connectedness is important. How the coronavirus has impacted our world is drastic, and we're having to find other ways to communicate with the people around us. How can we maintain being connected? How can we still be present and not be overlooked and not be isolated? How do we maintain being connected in our communities? So I wrote my article to kind of come up with ways that you can have solutions in different situations that are occurring, specifically in my life. I know the author of that Washington Post and I both have similar parallels in our articles.
Yeah, and I think it's a really necessary topic to make more public to everyone else. I think during these times it's easy to just kind of focus on one's own situation and how oneself is working through this time. But I think it's really valuable to hear how other communities and other people are dealing with this current time and the specific challenges other people face, because I think that understanding creates empathy and connection in a time where that's a really valuable thing. So I think it is really helpful to consider other people's experience during this, and I think in a way that does create connection. So I'm really glad that you were able to share your thoughts as well. I know that I benefited from reading that, and if that's something, if your op-ed is something that you would like to share, with our audience here, just let me know, and I'd be happy to share that with other people as well.
And this is Ryan. Absolutely, please do.
So we have about 4 minutes left in our conversation here. Again, sorry it got cut a little bit short, but I'm really glad for the time that we have had. You've really said some really great things that I think people will find really valuable. As we kind of wind down here, but still have a little time left, I'm wondering, is there anything that you'd like to share as we close out this conversation?
This is Ryan. What our community is going through right now in terms of communication breakdown is understandable given the times. Many people are going through a lot of challenges right now, and they're all understandable. We are working through it. We are making progress. We are being persistent, and it's important to be persistent. We are finding solutions, finding different strategies to break down these barriers that we're encountering. This is a new experience for everybody, myself included. How we're approaching these topics and figure out how to navigate this if it was to occur again in the future. This experience is going to help to prepare us for what's down the road. And that's important. That's really the key here.
That's so well said and such a great perspective. You know, I think as we get adjusted to what's happening right now and really accept the reality of it, a really helpful thing is to also understand how we can not just deal with what's happening right now, but prepare better for the future, like you just said. So I think that's a really, really valuable way to frame what's happening right now, and a really useful one. So thank you for sharing that. And again, as we approach closing out, if I were to ask you for the deafblind community that's going to be able to see this conversation, if you could speak directly to them, what are some closing words you'd like to say, speaking directly to the deafblind community that you are not only a part of, but also serve through the Helen Keller National Center?
I would say, and this is Ryan, we'll get through this. We'll be fine. We are all in this together.
Well said, Ryan. Thank you. I hope we're able to have another conversation in the future when we are work through some of the technical difficulties we had with the live stream. I'm sure we'll be able to solve that very shortly. So I hope you can join us again. I know where to find you, at least for the time being. It'll probably be sitting there right there in that room because it doesn't seem like we're going anywhere quite yet. But I'd love to speak with you again in the near future. And I also want to say, as we close out here, there's a lot more that we want to share about what Helen Keller Services and the branches of Helen Keller Services in Helen Keller National Center and Helen Keller Services for the Blind are offering right now. You can go to helenkeller.org, and that will provide information on the ways in which the organization is dealing with what's happening right now and having proactive approaches to help the community that they serve. I know that they're offering various courses right now virtually, and all of that information will be on the website. So I encourage you to check out their website. Again, that's helenkeller.org. You'll be able to access all the branches of Helen Keller there. And we'd love to hear from you as well. So again, we were unfortunately not able to continue our Facebook Live for this conversation. But if you have any questions once we post this conversation, please feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to send messages to our Facebook. And we'd love to hear from you. And we will certainly figure out whatever technical difficulties happen this time around, so that next time we can bring you the live stream that we were hoping to bring you today without any glitches. So again, thank you so much, Ryan, for everything that you shared today. Thank you for everyone who watches this, and we look forward to bringing you more episodes in the near future. As of right now, the plan is to continue on Fridays. It's possible we might add other days as well, but we will certainly be back soon, and we're looking forward to it. So thank you so much.